Well, hello again, fight fans, and welcome to another edition of the Speed Bag. Today, a plea for perspective. And yes, that plea has something to do with former UFC women's bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey. Now, Rousey made headlines this week, which is nothing new for her, but this time it was because she went on the Ellen DeGeneres show and admitted that she was in a pretty dark place after her knockout loss to Holly Holm at UFC 193 back in November. How dark a place? Well, according to Rousey, quote,
honestly, my thought, I was in the medical room, and I was down in the corner. I was sitting in the corner, and I was like, what am I anymore if I'm not this? And I was literally sitting there and thinking about killing myself. And that exact second, I'm like, I'm nothing. I'm like, what do I do anymore?
Not surprisingly, it was the line about killing herself that stuck out to many people. And looking around social media, the weird thing is it even seemed to anger some people. Some thought she was setting a poor example, being a poor role model. Others thought, she's just being melodramatic. Even a few accused her of faking it or playing the whole thing up for attention. And what it seems like a lot of people are missing here is, for one, this was a thought. This was, a memory of a feeling that she's sharing with us, and it's one that she had in kind of the lowest moment of her professional career, and also after she had been almost certainly concussed. She had been beaten up and knocked out cold, and if a person came to you in that very moment, right after that happened, and admitted to, a cognitive distortion or two, I don't know how you could really blame them. And whether people realize it or not, this kind of thing, this openness, that's one of the reasons Rousey has become such a big star, and one of the reasons why people who aren't even fight fans kind of gravitate toward her. You don't see that kind of open vulnerability from a lot of fighters. It's not that they don't feel it, it's just that they won't admit to it, especially, on TV. And honestly, do you think that Rousey is the only fighter who's ever felt that way after a bad loss, if only for a little while? She's definitely not. It's just that most fighters won't tell you about it, and they aren't invited onto the Ellen show to do so. And this feeling of, what am I if I'm not this? That's something you hear from a lot of fighters, especially newly retired fighters. That's one of the big things they struggle with. You put so much of your identity into a career like this. You have to, otherwise, you wouldn't last very long in it. It shouldn't really be that much of a surprise when sometimes it goes spectacularly bad and in front of a whole lot of people, many of whom were waiting for it to go spectacularly bad for you, and that doesn't feel great. And I get why it seems strange to people. A rich, famous, young pro athlete, one with her whole life ahead of her, one with 2 lucrative careers in fighting and movies ahead of her, and here she is talking about killing herself after exactly 1 loss. I understand that makes no sense to people, and, I'm sure when Rousey had a chance to reflect on it, it didn't make a ton of sense to her. Then again, this is a sport where we regularly hear people talk about how you'll have to kill them to stop them in the cage, how they're ready to die out there, and we don't even think anything of it anymore. It's a cliche at this point. The point is, if Rousey is trying to tell us the truth about how it felt to pour so much of herself into this career, and then to get beaten up and beaten up badly in front of a whole lot of people, I don't know how we can be mad at that. I also don't know how we can be that surprised. This kind of human drama, this is one of the reasons we like this sport. The stakes are so very high. If it turns out that for the fighters themselves, the emotional stakes are also just that high, that really shouldn't be such a shock. And clearly, Rousey's still here, so she eventually got some perspective on the moment. Maybe it's time the rest of us do the same.